Thank you, Chairman Rocana and Ranking Member Norman, for your leadership on this issue and for holding this very important and timely hearing this morning. And I'd like to be associated with the words of Mr. Rocana. President Biden has called upon the American oil industry, which we are proud of in many ways, to pump more oil. And we are hopeful that they will respond and pump more oil. They do have that oil. So we should pump that oil. He's also called for a release of oil from the strategic preserve. We all support that also. And we all just came from a heartbreaking meeting with bipartisan by Zoom with President Zelensky. And the most moving part for me was not only his plea for unity and help as he fought for freedom and justice in the world and in Ukraine, but he showed beautiful pictures of Ukraine and then the destruction of it with the bombs and the fires and how it was destroying their way of life. And I think all of us love the forests that we have in our country. There are too many fires. Maybe we'll understand more what's causing them, but whatever is causing them, we've got to join hands and work together to preserve our wildlife, preserve our forests, and it's important to our environment. As our country continues to experience increasingly frequent and severe wildfires and other natural disasters, the climate crisis has never been more dire. A United Nations report issued last month detailed how climate change and poor land use decisions will make wildfires more frequent and intense. All seasons will be fire seasons, and extreme fires will be more common, increasing by up to 30% by 2050 and by up to 50% by the end of the century. The UN report called on all nations, including the U.S., to change how we think of wildfires. Our emergency service workers and firefighters on the front lines are crucial to our response, and they need more support. In addition to fire suppression, we need to prioritize fire mitigation. We have a responsibility to invest more in fire risk reduction, to work with local and indigenous communities who know the land, and to strengthen our global commitment to fight climate change. That's why I am grateful that today's witnesses are joining us to explain what Congress, the Forest Service, and vulnerable communities can do if we work together. First, we must act to address climate change. The United Nations has found that nations' current climate pledges fall far too short of what is necessary to avert disaster. If current trends continue, global warming will exceed 1.5 degrees before the middle of the century, a point at which scientists say our planet will suffer irreversible damage. To avert this disaster, we need to immediately cut fossil fuel emissions by 3 to 4% each year and rapidly transition to net zero carbon emissions. Second, we also need to protect our forests, which absorb carbon emissions out of the air and lock them in trees and soil, helping our environment. Our forests are precious ecosystems that support all kinds of diverse plant and animal life. They also provide essential natural resources from food to medicine. Forests also support the lives and livelihoods of local communities. Despite their clear benefits and natural beauty, our forests are under attack. Whether it's due to climate change or timber industry or other reasons, we continue to lose our forests along with the animals and plants that live in them. Many want us to believe that forests thick with trees fuel bigger and more destructive blazes, but that, I am told by scientists, is not true. That is why I introduced H.R. 1755, the Northern Rockies Ecosystem Protection Act, or NREPA. NREPA is the kind of sweeping, systemic solution our nation needs to preserve pristine lands and benefit our environment. My bill would designate approximately 23 million acres of wildlands in the continental Northwest as wilderness. It would also designate approximately 1,800 miles of rivers and streams as wild and scenic rivers. This legislation would bring us significantly closer to President Biden's goal of protecting 30% of our lands and waters by 2030. My bill would also help us meet the goals of the Paris Agreement by preserving large swaths of forests and help cancel out our nation's carbon pollution emissions. And it will allow generations of Americans, including our children, our grandchildren, to continue to enjoy these pristine, beautiful, wild places. I want to thank Forest Service Chief Randy Moore and each of our witnesses for their testimony today and their service. And I am particularly grateful to the songwriter and great singer, probably the greatest in our time, Carole King is with us today. She is one of the few singers who is in both the Songwriters Hall of Fame and the Singers Hall of Fame, but she is here today as an environmentalist. She has been a champion for our public lands and for the struggle to preserve them for future generations, and I am very thankful for her leadership in advocating for the Northern Rockies Ecosystem Protection Bill. Together we will pass this bill and help our country meet its goals of protecting our country, our lands, our shared waters, and combating fires, combating climate change. I look forward to this hearing and the important topics that will be covered today. I want to thank again the chairman and the ranking member for calling this hearing, and I yield back, and a very special welcome to Mr. Moore, and thank you for your public service, and we look forward to your comments. I yield back.